should we be looking at ourselves and saying, we're focused on the wrong thing, we're using the wrong tactics, we've got the wrong goals? How can we be as critical of ourselves as we are of the people that we're talking to so that we know what our weaknesses are? What do you see in the movement say we're screwed up?
Well, there was this whole meme about, hey, Congress, it's no longer okay to understand the internet. Well, hey, internet, it's no longer okay to not understand Congress or politics, right? Clay Johnson was on informationdiet.org, and he's working basically exactly on that. And the internet has largely, in the technology community, for years and years, they've pretty much stayed out of Washington, they stayed out of politics, and they said, we're going to build technology, we'll innovate, and we'll just ignore what's going on there. And what we saw is that we can't do this anymore. On January 18th and before, several major technology companies had never taken a stance on a political issue before, let alone a technology issue, and they finally did so. And this is a watershed moment. So what we as a community need to do is to understand this, to figure out how to go talk to congresspeople, go talk to policymakers, go talk to whoever's going to be making the future of the internet, and to play a part and not just ignore it and say, oh no, we'll just let the other people deal with it, because if we do, that's going to be the MPA and the RA, and they suck.
I'm really excited about the open platform of internet activism, actually. I think we are always, I don't think there's one strategy, and I don't think any of us can predict what's gonna be the big winner next. But I think if we all keep coming up with ideas and putting them out there, some of them will fly, some of the best stuff will rise to the top. Those are the things that other people get behind, and some of the stuff is just gonna be a home run, so we have an advantage on our side, which is that we have the ways of an open internet to figure out the best activism and the best ways to affect Congress. I also wanted to say that the intention of the MPAA may have been to, do X, Y, and Z, but so legislators didn't know that the legislation was so broadly defined that it would capture lots and lots of activity on the internet that we will fight to the death for. But once groups and people started seeing that, oh yeah, this is the kind of language that when people have huge amounts of power to use, will abuse it. So that's I know that Senator Klobuchar, who wrote the Free Bieber bill, or sponsored it, did not know that she would be going up against a teenager. And when she saw Free Bieber, she cried. So it's true. It's actually not supposed to be out there, but now it is. But it's about teasing out those parts of bills that will impose themselves on our freedom and our basic rights that I think is our job to do. And I think we'll do it, and we'll show up in smart, fun, creative ways and in all those necessary ways that people have outlined.
And when it comes election time, start voting people out of office. Start calling up cousins and uncles in other districts. Officials. I'll go a step further. I remember when Sean Tevis, I know Anil, you guys know about Sean Tevis ran for office. He's probably the first Redditor to publicly announce his candidacy on Reddit. He ran for office, he lost, but there need to be more Sean Tevises. We need more elected officials who actually understand the internet. So what the hell is stopping you?
Can I see just one other experiment? I'd love if everybody runs. Go back home to wherever your home is, all across the country, or wherever your friends are. Start a meetup. Do it on meetup.com, do it whatever platform you want. Bring people together, talk about how awesome the internet is, and how we can figure out how we enfranchise everybody to have a say in the decision-making process about how the internet is governed. Right? Don't get into the weeds, don't get into the nerd issues, don't get into the nitty-gritty. Focus on that common theme, that root issue that sort of brought everybody together from the Tea Party patriots to us nerds. Start that experiment, send me a link and tell me how it goes, and then let's keep building from there. But it's going to take lots of experiments. You guys have to go out and just start building.
All right, speed round, 3 questions. We had one in the back that was a hand up earlier. Cheng.
So I know you guys have kind of touched on this, and the panel basically basically said defenders in the title. What exactly is the offense? The MPAA has, you ask them, they say they would love to be policymakers. And we've had numerous people say that they don't want to create policy on our current panel, or that they don't want to be policymakers. Who's the policymaker for the internet? Because the politicians don't know enough to do it themselves. And is crowdsourcing the answer, or what is the offense, not the defense?
Everything.
Yeah. I think it starts places like subreddits that people create, not to be shameless but it starts through all kinds of collaborative efforts.
It's your Google Doc, I think is the answer.
In all honesty, I mean, this is what we're figuring out now. We need every one of you to have your say and get involved, because we need to not only say no to things, but we need to get on the offensive. We have Redditors sitting at home in their spare time writing legislation. I'm so shocked that people would actually sit at home to write legislation. But that's the great thing about the internet, because they do. And we need to come up with potential policies. You have the Pirate Party, which now in Europe, I believe we were talking about this earlier. They're the third most popular party polling in the upcoming German elections. Holy shit, right? That's pretty cool. Now, here in the US, we have a different bipartisan system.
And third parties are viable there. It doesn't really
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bit of a different climate there, but Sweden has 2 members of the Pirate Party in the EU Parliament. We're seeing more and more of this political activity around these issues. So it's up to us as a community to create proactive means to protect the internet, and not merely just to say no to the next, mini SOPAs and the thousands of them that'll come along.
Next question's over here.
So I mean, I think it's a little bit late. I don't know
If I can sharpen the question, I think it's what's the next thing to worry about? CISPA is one of those
yeah,
examples.
and I
What
mean,
can we do?
it hasn't gotten enough attention, on Reddit and stuff. People have said, they're nobody cares about this, and that's more popular than Dan Fuller.
So let me slightly reshape this question, which is things like CISPA haven't gotten enough attention. We're still deciding what are going to be the next things that get attention, and people have a little bit of fatigue about the outrage. Everything can't be SOPA, everything can't be we blacken our sites so that it never comes back. So what are the tactics we do to keep attention focused on the next thing,
Well, so this came up on Reddit on the front page, and the team, I'm just on the board now, but the team responded to this over the weekend and drafted commentary, basically because we follow Reddit's lead. I think every one of us here on this panel is following the internet's lead, and Reddit has now taken a very detailed outline stance against CISPA, but in response to the community. And yeah, this is a very real problem, because we know that the threats are going to be a lot smaller, not nearly as blatantly awful as so many people, but that doesn't make them any less awful.
I actually think CISPA is blatantly awful. And I think
But it may be the last of the old bad ones, right?
They'll try to sneak stuff in. And it's just about digesting the language and figuring out how awful it is, and then relating it to daily activity. I forget what I was going to say though. Oh, I was going to say that SOPA didn't happen in a bubble. It took months of organizing. 3, that's very short, but it was hard work, and people like Elizabeth and everyone else on this panel worked day and night to get into January 18th. And CISPA is way more popular than SOPA as a topic to talk about on Reddit than SOPA was when it first started. So I think the activity around CISPA is very encouraging, and I think if you guys want to lead and do something, do it, and maybe people will follow you, and it'll become its own creative action, whatever it is.
If we get more wins, there'll definitely be more people that want to sign up for whatever.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to, people have to do it.
Just quickly on CISPA, I just want to add that there's a difference in that with SOPA, that many provisions of the bill threaten the fundamental business model of a lot of sites. CISPA doesn't have that. So as a community, we can't just rely upon the big websites that are going to, say, protest a bill like SOPA, who knows if they ever will again, because CISPA is about user rights and users' privacy. So that's a different scenario.
All the way.
last question. Sorry.
Okay, all the way in the back.
I just had a thought here. This stuff is so hard for our representatives to really understand, but the people connected to it, they see the petitions online, the sites black out. But it's not enough to make a flip on public opinion polls, not enough people, it's too low of a percentage. But when I
while you all have your hands up, one of the things I want you to think about is a question I'm going to ask everybody here on the panel, which is, what about the even bigger issues? Right, we've talked a lot about what if they take our way.
Kind of run them up.
Leave them up. But what if we go beyond, well, how do we share our music online, and how do we watch our movies, and how do we publish our sites? How do we fix the bigger social problems? Like, how do we fix classism, racism, sexism? How do we fix income inequality? Isn't this the thing that we should be doing with our powers on the web? Is this the problem? Are these the classic problems we can solve with these technologies?
The internet's going to solve everything, you know.
Should we be trying?
Yes.
I think people are.
Always be trying.
Well, I mean, I think what we're all feeling around is that this is bigger than a copyright issue or a technology issue. This is an issue about freedom and representation in decisions, political decisions that affect your life. When you state it that way, that applies to everybody. That's a very big tent issue. That cuts to all the 4 issues you're talking about. And so if we can use the internet and organize both on and offline to go after that, yeah, we get root access to make decisions that affect our lives. That's what we should be doing.
I also want to say that I'm actually shocked as to how many people here have read legislation. I went to law school, and I would not do that for fun. So I see this as a watershed moment again, where people are finally getting engaged, and not just on internet issues, although we're here and we want you guys to support the open internet, but there have been other examples. Susan G. Komen, I mean, I don't know if you really count Coney 2012, I don't know what you call that. But people are getting engaged, and they're using the open internet as a platform for having their voice heard about a variety of issues.
Coney was just this masturbatory nonprofit. I really want to believe that the ubiquity we have seen, or always will continue to see grow with the internet in our lives, will actually start to do will continue to do really powerful things. And whether that is let someone know who's in the middle of the country, who's just a little different from everyone else, that there is someone just like them somewhere else, and that we can actually coordinate bigger things and bigger change and actually make issues of things that wouldn't have been made issues of. The idea of like broadcast media controlling everything we know as news is really just the 20th century, right? Before that, there was a monopoly on attention. What, 3 networks? Is that how it all started? But today we can actually make news. And if we look at an example, let's not mention Coney, but like Trayvon, that story, I mean, I've gotten to know a couple of journalists really well who would be at the front lines of that had to hear about it because the internet made it an issue. We start to think about how many of those stories have probably happened that never made national attention before now. I get really hopeful about what a connected web means for all of us.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that the internet breaks up concentration of power, and people are doing it. And I think if we continue to allow the internet to fight for itself, we get those good things. I just think those two go together, and there's a long explanation behind that. But as long as we keep fighting for our interests, I think we get there. Right? I think we get to the public good.
As a friend of mine recently said, the key issue for our generation is about control of information versus freedom of information. So we need to be here fighting for freedom of information.
I think that's the final word. I want you all to join me in thanking.